Welcome to Ponchatoula Live, the show where we make it easy for you to connect with the people of Ponchatoula. I'm your host, Parker Layrisson, and I've got a fantastic guest to introduce you to today. This is one of my favorite people in town. He's not a guy that I get to see all the time because we're both busy with our kids. He's got teenagers, I've got toddlers, but he's somebody I've always looked up to. He was a couple years ahead of me in high school and just one of the best rounded people you're ever going to meet. He's smart, he's talented, he's charming, he's affable, but he's also grounded. He's, deeply religious. He's a fine Christian man, a community servant. He's a baseball coach, a firefighter. You name it, just one of the best people in town. So with no further ado, I introduce you to my friend, Philip Bankston. Philip, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing fine. I hope I can live up to that introduction.
Well, you deserve that and much more. And I meant every word of it. I really have always looked up to you since our high school days. And, why don't we begin our interview with you just telling us a little bit about yourself and kind of, who you are, where you're from, and just tell us about Philip.
Well, Parker, first of all, I appreciate you having me on, and I appreciate our friendship. It's probably grown stronger over the years. We've helped each other out in a couple of different ways, and I just appreciate being able to call you and talk to you whenever I need to.
Likewise.
But a little bit about myself, for people who don't know me, I was born in Pumpkin Center. That's where I was raised. I wasn't born there, but I was raised in Pumpkin Center. My father was Bo Bankston. He was from Baptist, and my mom was Nancy Hill, and she was from Pumpkin Center. So if you ever seen the Pumpkin Center Baptist exit, I'm all over that. So I was raised there, and I went to school in the Ponchatoula school system all my life. Grew up in Trinity Baptist Church, still go there, my home church. And I'm sure we'll get into more about everything about my life as we go on, but that's kind of the background of where I came from. I have one sister. Her name is Rebecca Willoughby, who's a very talented artist.
Very talented artist, yeah.
And
my family loves her work. The way we know who my mom's favorite son is of her four boys is who's getting the most portraits, and Louis definitely in the lead. I mean, he's got at least two of your sister's beautiful portraits up in his house for his boys. But Rebecca's super talented. Well, Tell us. You mentioned growing up in the church, and I know you're still in the church, and you've been incredibly active with your church. Really your whole life. So tell us what that was like, because you and I are kind of interested. We're kind of two sides of a coin in that I'm a Catholic living in a Baptist world. I married a good old Baptist girl and go to church with her on Sundays most of the time, as opposed to my church. But you are this, lifelong Baptist who's been captive at my old Catholic school. So we're going to get to this St. Joseph stuff later. And I know you got to make it to a St. Joseph baseball game here soon. But tell us about what it was like growing up in Trinity Baptist Church and kind of what that community means to you.
Sure.
That church family.
First of all, I'm glad to know your wife saved you. For my Catholic friends out there, I'm just picking.
Thank you.
But yeah, I grew up in Trinity, had very big influences. The Trinity Church is full of, when I was a kid, was full of trailers and hills, because that was the community church back then. And I was raised there, I was rooted there, and probably in all of our conversations today, you will see me go back to those roots, because all of that's kind of intertwined in my life. It always has been. Right. My pastor when I was younger was Dickie Nelson, who is now just retired from Westside here in town. And I've been there all my life for 40 something years. I'm a deacon there. And growing up in a Baptist church in what I call Ponchatoula, which is a Catholic town, that's the way I feel about it. It had its challenges, but you will see as we get along in the conversation what growing up in the Baptist church meant to me. I'll revert back to that.
Sure. So, folks, we're going to hear about sweet tea, dinner on the grounds, and all that good stuff that comes with Baptist church life. Well, you guys are making headway here, like I say, and y'all have sometimes sleeper cells. I always consider my wife and our religious affiliation a little bit of false advertising, because my wife's a Bruno from Independence, an Italian girl. Did not expect her to be a devout Baptist. By the time I figured out, it was too late. So
we're going to talk about my kids going to St. Joseph later, but we sent our kids to St. Joseph. I call them my little Catholic kids. So
we're gonna have to use that. My boy Luke just got accepted. He's all excited to know he's a future Crusader, and he'll start kindergarten there soon. I'm gonna pull up a comment here from our mutual friend Jeff Luckett, great guy, great buddy that I know we both had fun with and played ball with over the years. And to our viewers, I just want to say this is a live show, so we have the opportunity here to see your comments as they come in. We'll do our very best to pop them up on the screen and say hey. So Jeff, thanks for chiming in. Philip, I know you're just watching on a little camera phone, so you may have more trouble reading these than I do. If you need any help, let me know. But Jeff's not alone. Pete is giving you a shout out.
So Pete Jory is another Trinity Baptist Church. He was a youth minister there when I was there. He and his wife and me and my wife, who I'll talk about in great detail later.
Sure.
We were real good friends. Pete's a great
guy.
So he
fits right into the conversation on, Trinity
absolutely. He can tell you some stories about Trinity Baptist Church as well. Don't do it, Pete.
Well, we're talking about local folks you grew up with here and that are still here, but it's good to know too, you've got folks from far away watching in. Your old classmate, Bree Weaver, she says, wow, this is great. And she's watching us all the way from Indianapolis.
So let me tell you about Bree Weaver, who we grew up together. We were always in the same classes. We were always somewhat competitive in our grades. And I always pick with her. And
they were at the top of the class. Just so y'all know, not every Bree in Ponchatoula was a model student.
Bree was at the real top.
Right.
And I always pick at her and David Thompson, who also graduated with.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Bree, a literal rocket scientist. Yeah.
Absolutely. We got a rocket scientist and we got an infectious disease doctor specialist in Bree Weaver. And then I'm an insurance salesman. That tells you something. But
folks, don't let Philip sandbag you. He had 2 letter jackets in high school, one for starring on the baseball team and another for making a 30 on his ACT. So I'm not saying he's Bree Weaver or David Thompson smart. I'm not going to go there because they're genuine geniuses. But Philip deserves to be in the conversation with those guys. So
let me just say something about Bree while we're here. With the pandemic going on, and I don't know if I've really shared this with Bree, so she's watching. But this vaccine, whether to get it, whether to not get it, I don't care what your views are. Whatever. I got it. And one of the reasons I got it is because of Bree Weaver, because I trust her.
And tell us about that. Yeah.
So, that's her specialty. And she always is, I follow her on Facebook, whatever.
Right.
And whenever I saw Bree Weaver said she was getting the vaccine, I knew it was safe. That's the way I feel about it. So, if I wanted to go to the moon, I'd ask David. If I want a vaccine, I'd go to Bree. So, Bree,
I love what you say, because, when we have these big decisions in life, and you're a fish out of water, an insurance salesman, a lawyer, we don't know anything about diseases or medicine, you go to the people you trust. And that's not always a Tony Fauci household name. It's sometimes the smartest girl in class who sat next to you in science. And, she's on top of her game,
That's right.
And not for a pandemic, but for raising kids, I did the same thing. When my boys came along, and I'm almost 40 years into this life and know zero about medicine, I copied the girl whose homework I tried to copy when I was a kid, Erin Rance Hawk. She was a now brilliant pediatrician.
Another doctor.
Right. What do I do here, vaccine or not? But that's one neat thing about Ponchatoula is we've had folks go off and do amazing things all over the world. And it's cool that you're, kind of able to name a few here. We've got more comments coming in, folks. So I'm going to pour through a few of these, and then I promise we're going to get back to Philip's story, because that's why you're here. Jeff responded again. Jeff's such a great guy. I see him in his Saints gear there and his profile pic, and we had the honor to watch the Super Bowl together in Miami, and that's a weekend I'll always remember. Jeff, good to see you. Tracy Waters Regard here says you're a tremendous influence to her husband, and they value your friendship.
So Stu, stood in our wedding. Tracy
cool.
did too. We were Stu played baseball with me at Southeastern.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So
was he also a pitcher? What position?
He was also a left-handed pitcher from Marksville.
Okay. Neat.
So.
That's neat. Bree's definitely still watching. So we thank you for tuning in, Dr. Weaver. It's so good to see you after all these years. Kevin Rayford, speaking of great left-handed baseball players and coaches.
He's coaching with, I'm on the staff, this St. Joseph baseball dream staff, me, Brandon Smith, Kevin Rayford, and Ricky Broom. So he's waiting for me to get there, but I don't make the lineup. He knows that.
That's great. That's great. Well, all great players, man. Brandon and Kevin were a couple years behind me. And boy, yeah, they know their way around a baseball diamond for sure. Let's see here. Devin McKinney says you're the man, that you and your family are some of the most genuine people we'll ever meet. Devin, thank you for watching and sharing that. I couldn't agree more.
I paid these people, Parker. I paid these people.
Clearly, we're gonna circle back and I'm gonna see who is on the State Farm agency staff. I'm starting to get suspicious.
So Devin,
we can afford Bree Weaver, but some of these other folks may be on your payroll. You were saying?
So Devin McKinney, as you pop these names up, I kind of want to let you know how they fit into this life of mine.
Please do. Tell us about Devin and how you know Devin.
So Devin McKinney is one of the sweetest people, and I haven't known her, but just a few years. I coached her son in baseball, and they ended up going to our church. They just joined our church recently. Okay. She's also
she is a sweetheart. Yeah,
she's also a banker at, I don't know, can we name the bank?
Yeah, absolutely.
Hancock Whitney Bank.
Yeah, give her some free publicity because Lord knows she's taken care of me over the years.
Absolutely. She is they're wonderful people. Her and Jerry.
Yeah, my cousin John Vaughn worked for her for years before he passed away, and she's just wonderful. So I can't say enough good things about Devin. Thank you for sharing that. Christine Carlson Bartley. How do you know that she's talking about strawberry?
I don't know her, and I can't bring the Strawberry Festival back because I promise you I would.
Absolutely. Amen to that. Well, thank you, Christine, for chiming in. We appreciate you watching. Now we're talking. Rebecca's watching the show.
There you go. I hope she was watching when I plugged her painting and how talented she was. I did do that,
Rebecca. You are no doubt an incredibly talented artist, one of the leaders in the Ponchatoula's thriving art scene. And I definitely did some griping, hoping that speaking of moms watching, hoping that my own mom was watching and noticing that I noticed that Louis Larison's babies are all getting beautiful portraits and mine have not. Of course, mine were born last, so I guess we have to wait our turn. But and important Bankston women, oh my goodness, she's here.
There she is. Jerry,
tell us about. We're going to get into details of how you met Jerry, the love story. I want to know all that, but just give us a real quick primer on how she keeps you straight and what it means to you that she's watching your show, because I know she's a busy mom with a lot going on.
We'll get into how we met and all that whenever you're ready. But Jerry kind of glues the ship together at my house. You know how those wives are.
Absolutely.
Because I'm always running in 1,000 different directions. And without Jerry, I couldn't run in 1,000 different directions.
Yeah. When that became
a great story to me, about how we met and all that. It's real good.
Well, I want to get to that. But what I can confirm for our viewers that Philip said, he's not just buttering up his wife. I've seen it. And when it dawned on me was the first time I went to the fantasy baseball draft at the Bankston house. And I noticed Philip, it was like herding cats. He couldn't get a dozen guys organized on, how to draft pitchers and catchers. And Jerry was getting everything done downstairs. So,
making cookies.
Yeah, she hooked us up, put the kids to bed, bathed them, did everything she needed to do. So Jerry, thank you for watching. It's so good to see you up here on the screen. So Pete said he met you after you got married. Celeste Miller Henley, a blast from my past, is talking. I didn't know she was a Trinity girl, but she's related to my longtime neighbors when I was a kid. Wonderful woman. Were you in Celeste youth group together?
No. So when Bobby Hill was a youth minister at Trinity, I was just in the 7th grade. I never even got to go on a trip with him. He left before then. But he was a fabulous youth minister. Back then, they used to have 40, 50, sometimes 60 youth there when I was a kid.
Very cool. Celeste, thanks for watching. Your cousin Monty was like a big brother to me. Best next door neighbor ever. Sunday school teacher. Well, tell us about that. You're the best Sunday school teacher, apparently.
Whew.
Left that off the resume.
I don't know if I got enough money for these people. Yeah, I do. I do teach Sunday school to the young married. I say young marrieds. We're all about 40, 45 now, but
right.
I guess middle-aged married adult Sunday school class at Trinity. Yeah, it's another passion of mine. We have probably anywhere between 8 to 12, 13 couples in there every Sunday.
Oh, wow.
Which I think, just a plug for small groups, you learn so much about the Bible in a smaller group than when you just go to a big church and just hear everything, because you learn from each other.
Right. You know? It gets personal.
But thank you, Ashley. I appreciate that.
Your sister wisely says that Jerry's the best decision you ever made.
I don't argue with that. Not one
Speaking
bit.
of amens, Jerry has given Pete one here.
There you go.
And I think in what's the last comment we have for now, here's Pete again about what a great encouragement you were to him as a young pastor.
I try. Sometimes I pass, sometimes I fail, but I try.
And we're going to, if we sat here in comments, we'd be here all day. So if you're commenting, folks, I'm going to come back to you. Benton, starting with you, the State Farm family will be brought into this later. And Benton, you are on my target list. I'm going to invite you onto this show. Because
very interesting story for Benton.
Absolutely.
I don't want to ruin it. Don't miss that.
I won't spoil the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier and all the great things that Benton's done in his life, but he's a mutual friend of ours and a great guy who's selling State Farm insurance and doing great like you. So let's get back to your story. We're talking about the importance of church, and we kind of, talked about how you grew up in your church, community church. You got the Baptist Pumpkin Center exit going between your mom and dad. And I know you're raised by faithful Christians and Mr. Bo and Miss Nancy. Tell us about what childhood was like. What did you do for fun? We've had folks tell us about riding their bike through town and, spending time in the woods, swamps. What was it like for you?
So Parker, these people will not even know what I'm talking about. When I was a kid, my dad trained fox dogs.
Fox dog?
I
didn't even know we had foxes around here.
So it used to. Now there's still some people. There's some people that live around here that still fox hunt. And what fox hunting is they have a bunch of walker dogs, and they go out and they turn the dogs loose, and they're just doing it to hear them run. There is no killing. They just do it to sit around and hear a race. So when I was growing up, my dad had 10 acres. And he fenced that 10 acres in and put fox in that 10 acres. And people would come. My mom still has a Rolodex. People would come from hundreds of miles away to bring my dad puppies to train. So as those puppies come, he had like 8 pens, and there was 80 to 100 dogs in there. I'm not exaggerating.
Oh my gosh.
And he would train them. And my job every morning was to get up before school and go get the poop and scoop it up and throw it over the fence, because the dogs could not walk in that. This is honest. And when I got home in the evening, my job was to help feed the dogs and do the same thing. Now, I don't care if it was
Mama
rain,
Eddie,
snow, sleet, Christmas, Easter.
I will never complain about my chores again now that I learned what Philip's life was like.
So that was all my child. Every Friday night, we would go somewhere and sit around a fire and listen to dogs run till I went to sleep.
That's funny. So now I know why you moved, to the east side of town as far away as you could, so you couldn't be called over to
That's right. I'm about to build a house in the fox pen right now.
No, you kidding? No, that's neat. I had no idea. Wow, that's great news. I'm sure the family's excited about that, coming full circle. So wow. Now I also remember, I think, unless I'm confusing you with another friend, you become a teenager, you go to work at the hardware store out there.
I did.
Right? Tell us about that, because that's kind of an iconic place where people would
So
stop and chat.
Springfield Ace Hardware out there is owned by the Pattersons. I worked there from the time I was 14 or 15, however old I could be, to work till college. It's the best job that you can have, because now I can do all of that stuff. I had to teach people how to do plumbing, basic stuff.
Yeah.
But that's where I worked.
That's a great point. That's smart, because look, I just worked at Hi-Ho. All I did was learn how to eat burgers and fries and it didn't serve me as well.
Very practical.
Now, who else worked? Did Jeremiah work with you out there?
Jeremiah Davis worked out there for Jeff.
Great
Adams
guy. Jeremiah
out there for a little while. Yeah, there was that's all from this area, I think. But yeah, we had a good time there.
Very cool. Very cool.
Had a good time.
Who did you run with? Because I would imagine you get a friend when you're the dog crap guy. That's a true friend, right? They're not coming over like I did to play my buddy's Nintendo. And
when I was little, Jeb Adams grew up across the road from me.
Oh yeah, great guy. Yeah.
Had a Wesley Crawford down the road, Bourgeois, Carly Bourgeois, Chad Bourgeois, Jason Badon. That was all our little Pumpkin Center, Perkins Nickens Road clique. That was when I was a kid. Now we'll get in high school in a minute, but that was some of those had dogs too. Their dads had dogs. So
that's neat. Well, tell us about your parents and the role they played in your life. And of course, sadly, you lost your dad way too soon. And we don't have to get into that. I know that must be so painful. But he was such a great man. The town deserves to hear about him and what he was like and what he meant to you as a father. Would you mind sharing that with us?
Oh, not a bit. And we need to tell the whole story. I mean,
please do.
It's not the story.
And you tell it, because, I think people want to hear that.
So sure. So my mom, she was the church goer, the rock. She still is. And after you hear the whole story, you'll know when I say that she's the rock, you'll know what I'm talking about by she's the rock. So, my dad and I were very close, as I said, every Friday night we was on dog crate listening to dogs run. And he was a car salesman when I was a kid at Billups, at Buddy Billups. If anybody's on here, you got to be real old to remember that. But and Robbie Lee, that's how I got to be a State Farm agent. We'll talk about that maybe. But Robbie Lee worked with him at the Ford place. That's where I grew up, where he was working. And he was also a fast pitch softball player. That's what he liked to do. So we would start throwing the baseball. That's how
was he a lefty?
Baseball. No, he was a righty.
Okay.
My grandpa was left-handed. That's where I get it from. But he was a righty. So, that's how I learned how to play baseball. So my dad and I were very close. Well, the incident that you were referring to when I was 25, which was it was April of 2000. It was actually Easter Friday night. We had a cantata at the church, and my mom and dad, after the cantata, went to Sonic, and there was a scuffle there by my dad, and it turned into a bad deal. Well, anyway, one of them started shooting at the other one at the Sonic here, Ponchatoula, and a bullet ricocheted off and hit my dad, and he died. I was 25 years old then. And Parker, as we talked about the church, people don't, in my opinion, people don't realize how important it is to learn things from the church. As far as bad things are going to happen, you got to know how to get over those things without turning to worse things. And you have to know how to forgive people, because if you never learn how to forgive someone, you can never get over something like that. So, I never forget.
Which I'm sure 20 years later is so much easier said than done.
Oh, yeah.
Was it your foundation in the moment? I mean, how
absolutely. I remember the news interviewing me. They came to the church to interview me, as a matter of fact. And I just remember saying, you could pray for us, but there's a whole nother family out there somebody's going to jail or whatever for something that he did in the heat of the moment. He didn't mean to kill my dad. He had no intention to do that. So, those people, he needs just as much prayer as I do. That's just the way I felt about it. That's the way I still feel about it. But
well, that's impressive, man, because that's something I grew up hearing my own dad preach as a sheriff who saw all the consequences, of crime. But man, as the victim at 25 years old, that's powerful, man. That's kudos to you and the mama and daddy who raised you and the church that taught you. That's really impressive, man.
And just to follow up on that real quick, I told you my mom was a rock. I told you that. She's probably watching right now. But the next year, Good Friday night, my sister got killed in a car accident in Mississippi. Right. So, there was a couple. My grandmother got killed in a car wreck in April a few years before that. There was a few Aprils there that was just absolutely terrible.
Golly.
And if you know my mom, whoever knows my mom knows that she continued on faithfully with no problems. I mean, of course, she was sad. She was upset.
Of course.
But she's unbelievable.
Well, tell us more about Miss Nancy, because clearly she is the rock. And she is an incredible woman who has been through more. Her story reminds me so much of my favorite Aunt Barbara, who has just been in one tragedy after another, losing multiple husbands and multiple children. And I've never understood how she could get through that. And, same when I see you and your mom and all y'all have been through. But tell us about the other parts of her. What was she like as a mom growing up? Did you like her cooking? Tell us about Miss Nancy.
So before my wife and my sister pipe in about this, I was a mother's boy.
What a surprise.
She put me to bed every night, probably till I was 15-ish. She laid my clothes out. My wife said she laid my clothes out till I was 18. I argue with that a little bit. But she never worked.
As usual, Jerry's right, probably.
Yes. She never worked, had a job. Her job was to take care of her family and her house. And she did that every day of her life. She learned that from her mom and dad, who were strong Christians. Her grandpa and grandma, Kinchins, some of you may know them. They were strong. That's just the way that she was raised. And she instilled that in her kids.
Yeah. So neat. That's neat. Well, tell us about how'd you get along with your sisters? Because I'm all boys. I don't know what it's like to be raised. I got these, and I raised nothing but boys. I have my two little boys scrapping every day. But tell us about that. How did baby brother Philip do?
Sean, who passed away in the car wreck, that's who my son's named after, Sean. She was 10 years older than me. Rebecca was 9 years older than me. Right. So, I'm glad they can't share pictures, because there's pictures of me with curlers and everything else, as you can imagine. Right. But we got along fine because I was so much younger than they were. They took care of me.
Put those in the comments, though. We might not be able to put them up on the screen.
They took care of
me. Get my number. We'll find a way.
I remember being at Tucker, and they would be at the high school, and at recess, I would walk over to the fence, and they would wave to me, and I was like the coolest kid in the world.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah. Very neat. Well, yeah, that's neat. I guess, with an age gap like that, you're not really scrapping with them the way, say, my two boys 2 years apart,
Now, we scrapped a little bit, but, it wasn't bad.
Well, we're talking childhood. We've been through, some really tough stuff in your life and how you've overcome that and the importance of faith in that. Tell us about when you make that kind of next move into high school. You talk about you being at Tucker, and if there's anybody you want to mention from your Tucker days on, by all means, thank a teacher, whatever.
But there's a bunch of them I could think. But
you and I met in high school, and you were kind of the man. I come out, you're star left-handed pitcher, go on to be a college pitcher, popular. You name it, a National Honor Society, great student, whatever. But tell us about your experience, and we can build up to high school.
I can tell you.
How about the bigger picture of education, Ponchatoula education, and who impacted you?
I loved Ponchatoula High School. I think you know that. I mean, you remember. I loved every bit of it. And
you were Mr. PHS, right?
I was. But my daughter, who is a sophomore right now, Caroline, loves it just like I did. So it must run in the family. I loved it. I loved the teachers. I loved the atmosphere. I loved the sports. I loved every part of it. And I was blessed enough to be able to play baseball. And look, when I got to high school, my freshman year, I was kind of short and I was kind of pudgy. That's the best way to put it. And Melvin Myers, who I love Melvin Myers. He is
Coach Melvin Myers.
Coach Melvin Myers
was a great player in his own day. He and my brother were friends and teammates in high school. Yeah.
He was
a legend.
Phenomenal to me as a person and a coach. And he's the one that taught me how to do. Now, my dad taught me how to throw a baseball, but Melvin Myers taught me the game. And I'll never forget that. And he knows that. I tell him all the time how much I appreciate him, because he brought me to that next level. And Coach Gardner, who's still at the high school, Brian Gardner, was our assistant coach. And it was just, I can't say enough good about Ponchatoula High School. I don't, there's nothing bad about it, in my opinion. And it has its faults, and a lot of people don't send their kids there for one reason or the other. But I'm a Ponchatoula guy.
Well, no, I agree with you. It's a special place. And, the time when we were there, me graduating in 95, you in 93, that was a special time, right? I mean, Mr. Allen was still the principal. You mentioned two great coaches. They were also great teachers. I had both of those guys as teachers. And, I remember Coach Gardner carrying a baseball bat around. It was, I think, a plastic play bat, or maybe a ruler. But he always had something in his hands when he was teaching you science. And
hey, Coach Grigas teaching.
God! Speaking of incredible teachers, what a captivating teacher he was! Wow.
And then Cindy Foster, who is my absolute hero. She was the best teacher. She was unreal. But
she was incredible. And I
know those are just names that pop into my mind.
Yeah, special relationships with her. She was a very good teacher, excellent one, just phenomenal, and a wonderful, classy woman, man. She
absolutely.
Great mentor. Well, thanks for sharing that with us. So the next step, I guess, you go on to play college baseball. Did you know you were going to play baseball before you got there? Was it a recruitment? Tell us about that journey in the next chapter.
I can't sit here and tell you that I was this top recruit. I was not, but I was a free player because I got a full paid scholarship to anywhere I wanted to go.
That's right. This was the land before tops.
That's right.
That was a big deal.
That's right.
LSU, 30 on the ACT came in handy.
That's right. I had 30 on my ACT. LSU gave me a full ride. Southeastern gave me everywhere gave me a full ride.
Yeah.
And I even have a postcard from Skip Burtman when he was in Omaha, because I was a free player, not because I was this great player.
That's cool.
Don't even think. But I do have a postcard.
No, man, you were a crafty lefty. I mean, let's face it. You were a great pitcher. You might not have been throwing heat like Justin Adams and Charlie Landry and all these, big flame throwers.
Don't leave out Phil McCrory.
Fifi. Oh my gosh, right. Phil McCrory. If you want to talk about an incredible athlete. I'll never forget when I was a kid. Phil was, in between us in school, and Phil was great at every sport: basketball, football, baseball. But I remember this was the first kind of combine experience I ever saw before I even knew what the NFL combine was. For the football draft, they got us out there for like a skills day. They'd have you run and do to kind of size up who was who. And the coaches told whoever had the first pick told Phil, "Don't even run." So everybody else is busting their tail on the 40-yard dash, and he's just kind of jogging because, so it's like those quarterbacks that won't throw at the combine now. He didn't have to. He was that good. Right. But, you came through. I mean, it was kind of a golden era for the time of Ponchatoula baseball. You had
absolutely Corey Burner, who went to
Corey Burner caught. Yeah.
Charlie Landry, who was a few years younger than me,
Jeremy
but he went.
Babin, Hunter Gomez.
Hunter Gomez has a ring. That's right.
Yeah.
And then we only had 4 seniors. It was me, Colin Uter, Ronnie Corbin, and Jamie Berthelot, all Ponchatoula icons.
Yeah.
So when I went to go play college, because I could go, Greg Martin was at Southeastern, who was an ex-baseball coach here.
Yeah, former Ponchatoula coach, right? Yeah.
And I didn't want to leave home. Yeah. So it worked out perfect. And I went to Southeastern. We'll talk about baseball first. And I didn't play but a few years there. It turned into more than I wanted to do.
Sure.
I love the game, but I could tell it was just not. There comes a time in every man's life, right? And that was my time to lay down.
Hang up the cleats. And For me, that was, the ninth grade.
That's
Some of
right.
you last longer than the rest of us. A few years ago, Mutt Burner was introducing me to the Kiwanis Club, and he told him that he had been my coach at least 5 or 6 years in my youth. And he said he thought my athletic career peaked in about the 6th grade. So be glad you had as many years as you did there.
That's right.
What I want to do before we get into that next chapter is get back to our comments, because we've got a few friends of yours chiming in here. Carolyn Smith Davis.
Right.
Got, I think, 2 comments in a row. 3. Look at that. Listen to the dogs run.
Old Pumpkin Center people.
Miss Faye Ivaniski, you're back. I think we missed you last week, but thank you for chiming in. What a wonderful, sweet woman she is.
Yes.
Your buddy Pete showing some love to your mom there. Oh, look at this.
My niece.
Interesting disagreement stories. Is your niece has prompted a topic here?
Yeah, we don't. There's no disagreement.
You want to tell us there?
Nah, we won't go into any disagreements.
Thank you for trying to get him. And Devin is come back to us here with a long comment here, and oh, nice. She says that since I brought up my cousin John Vaughn, he was the person that inspired her commitment to community service. Well, Devin, thank you for sharing that.
That's a very good question. Who inspired my commitment for service? Can we talk about that now?
Yes, I want to. That's why we have this comment up. Go for it.
So, as you know, I'm a fireman, and I'm sure we might talk a little bit about that later. The guy, now this might be the only time I get choked up. The guy that really influenced me to be a fireman is Shannon Joyner.
Wow, what a great man he was.
So, him and Stump, who, if anybody knows me and sees me around town, knows my relationship with Stump, with Byron Willie. We are very close.
Great man.
So when my dad got killed that night, I just got a phone call and said, go to Sonic. I had no idea what was going on.
Oh, God.
And so when I got there, Shannon Joyner is the first person I see. He grabs me, gets me in his truck and takes me to the hospital. I still remember all of that. And then I kind of started hanging around the fire department, and Shannon Joyner was the model for volunteerism. He was He was everywhere. There was a jambalaya cook-off. There was anything.
A true giver's heart. I mean, he would give you every bit of time, energy, anything he had, shirt off his back. Wonderful.
So I would say that he is probably the biggest influence for me to serve my community. And Stump's the same way. When you saw Shannon, you saw Stump.
Well, and they were best friends forever. And I'm so glad you brought him up, because Shannon was a true Ponchatoula icon. I mean, it was virtually undisputed. He was the best cook in town, and
no doubt.
But he shared. I remember when I was president of the Rotary Club, we decided to switch from selling gumbo at the Strawberry Festival to jambalaya, and none of us knew how to cook, But Shannon came and shared his award-winning recipe and coached us up, and we never got close to doing what he could do. I won't front or pretend that, but how generous, of a guy that would just kind of do whatever you needed him to do. And I mean, how many charities did he cook up for? How many families going through the worst day of their life like you did?
I know how many charities we cook for now, and he cooked for much more than that.
Yeah. Well, let's look. We can circle back to the next stage of life, and I'm certainly going to want to get into the love story with Jerry and the kids that came from it. But let's take a moment here to talk about the fire department and talk about your community service there, because Ponchatoula is fairly unique in our structure with a volunteer fire department, and you're one of the leaders. You're right. So first, maybe we talk big picture about how fire departments work. And I know it seems obvious to you, Philip, but what they do. Not everybody understands they do more than put out fires. And then we can get into how a volunteer fire department differs from, say, a regular fire department, how Ponchatoula may differ from Hammond, whatever. And then we can get into more specifically your role as one of the officers and kind of what it's meant to you. I know that's a lot to unpack, but tell us about the fire department.
I can unpack it for you. So the broad picture of the fire department is, whenever you call 911, no matter what you call 911 for, breathing problems, stumped your toe, car wreck, fire, whatever, we get dispatched to it. No matter whatever medical situation you got, no matter anything, we get dispatched along with the ambulance. But we get dispatched to get there before the ambulance. So we do the first responder. That's why it gets its title, because we're the first ones there. We make sure the scene's okay. We do this, we do that, we do this. So in Ponchatoula, we have a volunteer fire department. There's 4 stations in Ponchatoula. One's on the east side out by Sand Hill Cemetery. One's on the west side by Cheryl's Meadows. We got one here by the railroad tracks, and we got the big one, which is Central Fire Station by First Street. Each one of those fire stations are manned by 2 people per shift. So there's 8 people on duty, paid firemen at any given moment. We all have, I got mine on, we all have beepers and a radio, and whenever...
Man, why don't y'all have those big red beepers they had when I was a kid?
Parker,
I'm going to tell you, when one of those would go off in St. Joseph Church on Sunday, that was awesome. Awesome scene. See all
the coolest thing in the world was seeing when you were at a football game or anything, and those red beepers went off and they go running.
God, yeah.
That was the best.
Yeah.
So when they go off, the volunteers can go if they're close or whatever. So sometimes it's different people that go all the time.
Right.
So that's basically the broad view of the fire.
Okay. And how many volunteers do y'all have? What's the size of our?
38.
Okay.
38 volunteers. So that's 38 active people. We have several people who are who have their 20 years, so they're like the lifetime members. They still members, but they don't have to go to calls anymore.
And how many professional paid firefighters at this time?
Let's say, let's see, 2, 4, 6, 12, somewhere in the neighborhood of 20.
Okay.
Between the 4 stations, and then there's some part times too, because you have to realize that there's 3 different shifts.
Right.
And at any given moment, there's 8 on each shift. That's right.
Yeah. Well, speaking of firefighters, Chad Roberts chiming in with a hi here. You got anything to say about Chad?
He is one of our finest paid firemen.
Absolutely. Great guy, great family.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Thanks for tuning in. So
our chief is Stormy
Joiners.
That's right. That's Shannon's little brother. Who has
not so little brother.
No, not so little. If
Giant
you've ever seen
little
Stormy,
brother.
not little. And he's done a phenomenal job as chief. He loves his job.
Yeah.
He is a fireman at heart. He loves the people. He loves his job. And if you ever see him on a call, you know that. You can just look at him and tell him. Brayville LeBlanc.
And if you don't mind, let me say one thing about Stormy before you go on. He's a great leader, but he's a real John Wayne type, right? In that he's a man of action and a strong, silent type, man of few words.
Absolutely.
It's been neat to see him, because he was like a big brother to me when I was a kid. His mom and my dad worked together. His dad and mine go way back, and he used to drive me home from school when I got, let me eat lunch with him at PHS when he was a senior, and it's always had a very intense protective instinct.
Yeah.
And, it's one of these things. If you could go back in time and tell us that Bree Layrisson would be chief of police, Warner would be chief of the fire department, I would have laughed you out of the room.
No one would believe you.
And what's Stormy been chief now? Maybe 3-4 years.
This is his 3rd year.
And he's done a commendable job. So
know
that I tried to get him on the program, but he's a man of few words and he's not in it for the accolade.
Not at all.
Attention. He said, look, let Philip and the other officers talk about it. But I just want to give a shout out to our chief.
No
he
problem.
Does a great job. So you mentioned Brayville. Speaking of great men, Brayville LeBlanc has been an officer with the fire department for many years.
Absolutely. Since I've been in the department I've been in 8 or 9 years now. He's always been an assistant chief. Another volunteer at heart person. He makes a lot of calls. He loves it. People know him. People trust him. Great fireman. Fireman. And then we just elected Trey Boo Landry as the 2nd assistant chief.
Wow, great guy. Yeah.
And Trey Boo comes from Acadian a long time ago.
Yeah, long time paramedic and first responder.
Absolutely. And Al Cook was that chief before him. So we really have a few people in the department who have that medical background. That really helps.
Right. Okay.
And then Brian Staub is the secretary.
Right. And he's done that for a while, if I recall, right?
Long time. And then I'm the treasurer.
And you took over for Mr. Billy Dufresh, is that right?
Big shoes to fill, Mr. Billy Dufresh, who did it for
when did that
several
transition
years.
happen? When did you get the job?
Right when Stormy became chief, I became treasurer. So that's been, I guess this is my third, might be our fourth year. I don't know, one of those.
Well, the guys in the department sing your praises, and you know it's obvious to see why. I'll show you one thing here. This is the Ponchatoula Volunteer Fire Department Facebook page here. I love whoever posted this photo during the freeze of the little firefighter snowman. That was really neat. But here's an action shot of Philip teaching the kids about fire safety. And the cool thing is, at the conclusion of that tour, you get to shoot the fire hose. And I got to watch this unfold with my own kid at Strawberry Castle Preschool come. And you and Jeremy Pelche and all the guys that participate in that do a phenomenal job. Tell us about this and about how you educate our youth about fire safety, because then that's a big part of your focus.
So Jeremy Pelche is another one that people don't really realize how much stuff he actually does at the department. Yeah. He is in charge of just one of the things was Fire Prevention Week, which is my favorite week of the year as far as firefighting. We bring in hundreds of students, Tucker, DC Reeves, like you say, Strawberry Castle. We go to St. Joseph. I'm sure I'm missing somebody, but they come into our fire station. They watch a video of fire safety. We teach them about the fire alarms and how they work. Then they get to go outside, and we got a maze set up with smoke in it. They actually go through that maze, stay low, go through the window.
Stop, drop, and roll, whole routine.
Whole 9 yards. And then a lucky few of them get to skeet the hose out.
And you guys even have this custom target, right? Where there's a fake fire set up in a window.
Josh Shelton and a few other ones who are very talented at making stuff. Yeah, when you shoot the window, it puts the fire out. It is. That's
really cool, man. Look, those kids go bonkers for this. My little boy Luke would not shut up about it. He was so proud that he got to do it. We showed him the photo. He just, give me your phone, Dad. He wanted to look at the photo of him with the fire hose.
I've seen kids in town. Hey, you're the fireman that I got to shoot the hose with. They love that. They love that. So
yeah, I just really appreciate the way y'all do that. And not only do a ton of you volunteer at the fire department in doing that, but for those that can't make it there, the guys that go to the schools, when you mentioned Jeremy Pelche, when he went to Strawberry Castle, for the little ones that aren't ready yet to go to the firehouse, he lets them wear his hat. I mean, they get so into it, man. He let them sit on the bumper or side steps or whatever of the trucks. I mean, they just think they're heroes, and
absolutely,
you guys really are. I mean, to any firefighters watching, I give your buddy Philip a hard time because we came up together, but you are real heroes. You're real American heroes. And Brett Satoon says, "Hey, I want to share
another one of our good firemen."
Yeah, speaking of great firefighting families and
absolutely, his dad was a paid guy. And both him and his brother are firemen. And then you have his uncles. There's so many Satoons. That is a firefighting family who has volunteered many, many hours to this town to do that.
Well, it's a real brotherhood. Trey Harris was our guest last week, and his dad's a lifetime fireman.
Absolutely.
And I've heard Mr. Johnny B so many times, and Trey, from his dad, talk about the concept of brotherhood. He refers to his colleagues as brother firemen, and it's really neat to see that, man. And to see you guys taking up you, Brett, Jeremy, the next generation. It's really cool. Rhonda Smith, a very sweet lady who everybody in Ponchatoula knows and adores, says you're a sweetie. And
another Trinity Baptist Church connection. She used to go. She don't go there anymore, but we used to go to church together at Trinity.
Okay. Well, speaking of connections, we've been teasing it.
Yes.
Let's talk love connection. Your beautiful wife, Jerry, is
let me tell you about
the best thing ever happened to you. Tell us about how that happened.
So I was playing baseball at Southeastern, and she was at Southeastern, and she worked at a place called Auxiliary Services, and she always had to come into the common
Was that like
area.
a campus job or?
I don't know what it was.
Okay.
I don't know what they did. I think it was actually, I don't know,
You
Auxiliary
didn't
Services.
know you were starstruck from the pretty blonde the whole time.
Well, what happened was she was in a sorority and they had a date night and she just couldn't resist. She had to ask me. So, I guess,
Folks,
this
when I was a lawyer, I know when I'm being lied to on the stand. Okay, I'm not going to cross-examine him. No upside in exposing my friend here. But if the story goes she was after you, the BS alert is.
I wouldn't say that she was after me, but she did ask me to go to that function, that Phi Mu function with her. And
I married a Phi Mu lady.
Really?
Yeah,
so you know what I'm talking about. It was the date night.
Hey,
I don't know if
you got to be careful.
Look,
the Phi Mu lady's watching, so please.
She knows. She knows.
Know that the eyes and ears are on you right now. You better get it right.
So anyway, we started dating in college, and she is a fine Baptist lady too. So I wouldn't say that's a prerequisite for me finding a wife, but I think the good Lord took care of me as he always has and led me to Jerry. And we started dating in college, and we've been dating ever since. So we've been together since 93, however many years that is, a long time. We've got two beautiful kids, Caroline, who's 16. Like I said, she's a sophomore.
Yeah, please tell us about your kids.
Caroline loves to play the piano. She does that in church sometimes. And like I tell you, she is a social, I don't know where she gets it from. She's a social butterfly. She just
wonder where she gets it from. Yeah, big mystery there.
And then Sean is in the 8th grade at St. Joseph. He'll go to Ponchatoula High School next year. He is a baseball guy, and he likes to hunt just like his dad. Both very smart. I know everybody says that about their kids, but they're very smart kids. They're very good kids.
But some people are telling the truth when they say that, right? I mean, Bree Weaver's parents were telling the truth when they said that.
Absolutely. Some people, that's right. That's right. So
sometimes you got a rocket scientist or an infectious disease doctor in the house.
That's right. And I'll plug, they go to Trinity. I'll plug that youth group. Jonah Kyle Traylor, who is Mark Traylor's son, and Sonia Jenkins Traylor's son. I'm sure many of you know that he is phenomenal. He is our youth minister, and he is phenomenal. And they have 30 or 40 youth there on Tuesday nights. So if you have a kid that's looking to do something like that on Tuesday nights, it is wonderful.
Thanks for plugging that, and take it one step further. Tell us how can we connect if somebody is looking for a church, whether for the youth group and their kid or adult membership. How can they touch base with you if they wanted to check out Trinity? So
if you can touch base with me on Facebook anytime. Trinity's got a Facebook page that gets checked all the time. Our pastor is Avery Dixon. He is a fabulous, and you can actually watch a service online and listen to him preach. And if you think that's the case, you come down there. We have Sunday school at 9:30. We have church services at 10:45, and youth is on Tuesday nights. Don't miss that.
Well, thank you. That's a good commercial.
That's my Trinity Baptist Church
commercials and Satoons. Call back to that.
There you go.
At least, look, it's Jake from State Farm.
Yep. That's Brett's father, who was a paid fireman for many, many years and volunteered a lot of his
about your wife and your mother-in-law here saying some really nice things about you. She checked you out thoroughly before she let you date her daughter.
She did. She's a Rogers from Tig Falls. That tells you anything.
Well, that tells you got to get it right.
That's right.
Rogers from Tig Falls. I worked with one for a while. Wonderful woman. You got to get that right. There's no room for error.
My mother-in-law takes very good care of us.
Miss Linda, thank you for tuning in and watching us. Ashley Willis Miller says, don't forget about the bathroom tiles.
I don't know what she's talking about.
That might be a reference back to your hardware store days. Who knows?
Oh, maybe so. So
let's tell some old PHS stories. We've got 6 minutes, folks. I promise Philip he'd get out of here by 6 so he could go to that baseball game.
I could do this all night. Miss Gay Starker was my freshman year PE teacher. We we had golf once 6 weeks, and somebody got hit in the head with a golf club. It wasn't me, but it was. I
Were
was
you doing swinging? That'd be
I may or may not have been involved in that.
Oh, good.
So yeah, Miss Gay was our fabulous.
PHS in the 90s was wild. Just yesterday, I had Kevin Roberto in here, and he was giving me a hard time about the time I locked his pregnant wife out of her own classroom.
Nice. Well,
we're not model students, Philip and I. We were only allowed to become Mr. PHS 95 and 93.
That's right.
By the grace of God and some patient teachers like Miss Gay.
We got lucky.
Looked at our antics.
We definitely got lucky. And you graduated from some fabulous people. Like I've talked about Bree and David. You had Pete Clark on here earlier.
Yeah,
he was a classmate of mine. Our 1993 class, I put up against anybody. Of course, you say that about 95 too, I'm sure.
Well, look, I love my class. I love them all. I mean, what can I say? I mean, everybody's partial to their buddies next to you.
Leroy. Hey, Leroy, if you need anything as far as meat, you go to Bonings, and he's your man.
Hey,
Leroy, he was just the king of the Strawberry Festival.
He was the king. I was about to say, it doesn't get more Ponchatoula than him.
That's right.
That's Strawberry King.
That's right.
Yeah, I don't know. We got lucky. We struck gold with the Satoons today. I'm
telling you, they're everywhere.
3 of them in one show. That doesn't come often.
No, that's right.
But great folks. Philip, we're about out of time, and I want to get you out of here on time, but I do want to ask you a couple closing questions.
Sure.
First is, we've covered so much ground, life experience, volunteerism, etc. If you could go back to your young self, or talk to any young kid, 18, 20, you just getting started in life, what advice would you give them based on what you've learned and where you are now?
So, look, you saw this the whole period. I grew up in church. Mm-hmm. And when you have faith, it grounds you.
Oh, goodness.
What I mean
by Philip, I think you just got bumped. The last thing I heard was when you have faith, it grounds you.
It grounds you. And what I mean by grounded is when something is so bad that you can't take it, you know that you have faith that it's going to get better. Or when something's so good, your faith also tells you that it's not going to stay that way. So, especially when you're going to college, or when you're trying to find a job, or when you're trying to find a wife, or whatever, you're trying to find a school for your kids, or whatever decision that you're trying to make, it's very difficult to do that unless you have some sort of faith in something, right?
Amen.
So that's the advice I would give.
That's phenomenal advice. So let's just close with this. Is there anything else you'd like to share with our viewers? Anything at all?
So I am a State Farm agent.
Yeah. What a bad friend.
I do have a job.
I promised you I would mention that, and I never did. My apologies.
I told Parker, look, I'm a State Farm agent. I'm an insurance salesman, right? So we are up there with used car salesmen and attorneys, right, Parker? I mean, let's just be honest.
We're below you. Trust me. We're at the bottom of that.
But I always tell people, if somebody wants to buy insurance from me, I don't want to have to sell it to them. I want to buy it from me because they trust me, right? They trust me and they do it.
Guys, I told Philip, I said, we could talk about insurance. You could talk about the importance of uninsured motorist clauses, whatever. I don't want to, nobody wants to hear about that. I don't want to talk about it. Let's talk baseball and firefighters and faith and church. And so know that he is not on the show to sell you. But I will say this, and I must, State Farm is a quality product. I mean, as an injury attorney, my day job is I help people who get hurt in car accidents, which means I sue insurance companies every day,
Right.
And it doesn't matter which company it is. If they hurt my client, I'm after them. But I carry State Farm for myself and my family because I trust the product that much. And, you couldn't do better than an agent like Philip, who is honest and faithful. So,
you know what? I say this about it, and then we'll wrap it up. But the reason why insurance was perfect for me is because people call me. Usually, when they call me, there's something wrong, right? And hopefully, I can help them. Now, not all the time. Insurance don't cover everything, We could go an hour about stories about that, but
Sure.
you know, that's why I like being a State Farm agent. And I think that's why, just to give State Farm a plug, I think that's why it's important to have an agent, because you've got somebody like me or like Benton or like Alexis or like all these State Farm agents who care about you. They care. You know, if you call me, then I'm going to try to get you to where you need to be.
Yeah.
So that's my State Farm plug.
And I can tell you, in Philip's case, he's going to be honest with you. I've tried to call him and buy insurance before, and he said either you're already covered or, you know, stick with the guy you've got. Or, I mean, he's not all about the profit. He's a great guy who's going to shoot you straight. So if you need insurance, and really we all do, give him a call. Philip, thank you so much for being on the show. I'm so grateful that you shared your stories and your time with us. To our viewers, we'll be back next week at 5 p.m. on Thursday. Thanks so much. Ponchatoula Live. We'll see you next week.